All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Creative Finance Collective. I'm Andy Fowler. I've got here with me Scott Horne from Texas. We're here to talk a little bit about creative finance, answer any questions from the audience. So make sure to post those in the chat. We'll be here for as long as an hour, but really, ideally, we're going to be here until we stop getting questions. So if you got questions, it's important for you to post those and interact. So, Scott, we were just talking a little bit ago. We were talking about football. Not a lot happened over the weekend, did it? It was a real disappointment.
That pretty much sucked, didn't it?
Yeah, something tells me if a Texas team had made it, it would have been more exciting. That's
It tells me if anybody had made it, it might have been more exciting. I mean, you can't get much worse than what happened. It's almost like they just rolled over. Or maybe Philadelphia was just that good for those Philadelphia fans.
oh yeah, maybe maybe they were just that good. I kept telling my kids when we were watching it. I said, this is it's only a matter of time. We're going to see a comeback. This team is too good. This quarterback's too good. We're going to see a comeback, and boy, it sure never materialized. It was pretty weak.
No, it was. It was
So,
pitiful.
what are you seeing in the
Thank
real
goodness
estate?
for food, though,
Yeah. It's always,
and too much of it as usual.
yeah. Hey, I'm always the one thing I love about the Super Bowl. It's always a good excuse to have a few people over and eat food that we're not
We
normally
have
allowed to eat.
for 30 years, with the exception of this year, had this thing that we call the Beast Feast.
Oh,
Because here in Texas, IR and Aggie, as we say, and a lot of these guys are all big hunters.
okay.
And so whatever they've shot and killed over the year, they bring in and they cook and we eat it all. And you can't complain. It's pretty good. And they're pretty good cooks.
So you're eating beast. You're eating freshly hunted game
Or freshly frozen or something,
or
anywhere from,
frozen.
from elk to venison to duck to turkey to hog to you name it, they bring it.
That's a fun idea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you find these guys who are the big time hunters and whatnot. Of course, they all know how to cook it the right way and do things, and it ain't bad.
sure, sure.
Chance to catch up, chance to drink a little bit too much, maybe sometimes. Not that I would do that personally, but who knows?
Well, they say, I guess yesterday was like the biggest call out day of the year. Did you call out yesterday?
Call out to whom or
Dude,
what?
well, it's a call out day for people for to your employer or whatever, because
Oh,
you had a little bit too much fun. You didn't call yourself out to yourself, did you?
no,
No.
I don't get that luxury.
You don't get calls out when you're running the show.
No, it's 24/7, unfortunately,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you know that too.
Yep. Yep, it is.
Price we pay, right?
That's the life. That's what you sign up for as an entrepreneur.
And you think about that, Andy, and I go back because I've only had a job for 1 year in my entire life.
Hmm.
Otherwise, it's been self-employed one way or the other. And if you want to eat, you have to go out and hunt it and kill it in some format, right?
Yep.
But once you get into that I don't know what you want to call it, that lifestyle per se, where if you don't go out and work, you're not eating. It's kind of like going back to the pioneer days. If you didn't go out in the summertime and chop wood, you
Yeah.
froze to death. If you didn't go out and shoot the animals and whatnot and put food away, you starved to death.
Yeah.
You have to do what you got to do, but you get into that mode, and everybody always says work smart, not hard. I'm just going, what planet are they on? 'Cause I think you got to kind of do both of those
Yeah.
to make it happen. And when you're an entrepreneur and you're self-employed, if you want to make it, yeah, you're going to work constantly.
Yeah.
I mean, you eat it, you sleep it, you take a shower with it, you do everything with it.
Yep. That's it. And if you take your foot off the gas at all, your business basically starts the process of slowly dying, maybe quickly dying, right?
It's really funny, Andy, that you say that in a way, and you know, there are times in any business that you get little lulls here and there. Whatever that lull might be, a little bit of lull in legal work, maybe a little bit of lull in title work, maybe a little lull in the investment side of things and whatnot. And you go, wow, I get a little bit of a break for, half a day or a day or something like that.
Hmm.
Then you come back and go, uh-oh, what's wrong?
Yeah.
You gear up to get all this stuff going again and to create more things churning and happening.
Right.
And this seems to be the nature of the beast.
Yep. That's it.
Where's the
My,
rest of your crowd today?
well,
Ice fishing again?
ice fishing, uh, some sort of conflict. Everybody's got a conflict, but
I'm
that's,
conflicted.
yep.
Does that count?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Hey, we got a question. So if you're watching and you have a question relating to creative finance, make sure to post it in the chat. We'll be on here as long as we're getting questions. So make sure to post those there. And so for our first question, I think this is a good one for you because you're in the title work, but pretty simple. Can any title office close a sub-2 sale, or should I find an office that specializes in it? I suppose the answer is, could any do it? Sure. Would you recommend it? Do you need to find a specialist?
Yeah. How many specialists actually exist out
Well,
in the marketplace, right?
that's a whole nother problem.
Now,
Yeah.
here in Texas, what I find so funny, I mean, the title lobby is extremely strong. Our Home Builder Association is probably the strongest, lobbyist group in the state, with realtors right behind it.
Yeah.
Then you've got the title industry is right up there with them. And when you read all of this new, just anything that goes on in changing property law, they always want to throw title company. For instance, we have this thing here in Texas that went into effect January of 2022 called the WRAP lending bill. We call it Senate Bill 43.
Okay.
And that's because one dude out in Arizona screwed everything up for all of us.
Was it Arizona?
Nah, he's out in El Paso.
Oh.
He might be in Club Fed in Arizona right now. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Now he's in Arizona.
He might be. But, oh gosh, where was I going with that? When you read some of these statutes, so for instance, in this one, it says closes in a law firm or a title company or it's void. A transaction that could be a subject to or a wraparound deal. And of course, my first question is what the world does closing in a title company have to do with anything?
Yeah.
Because title companies care about one thing: closing a deal, making money.
Right.
That's it. They don't look at this from a compliance perspective. Did the seller, did the buyer follow the rules and regulations? Again, here in Texas, things are more problematic than Arizona or other states that I know. But there are still rules you're supposed to follow. If you're doing a wrap loan to somebody, you should be, processing the buyer every single time in every state but for Texas. Because Texas, you got up to a 3 property de minimis rule here. But all other states follow the SAFE Act. Well, if you're doing a wrap loan, for instance, I know I'm not talking about a sub-2, the title companies don't know this. Do you really think an escrow assistant or an escrow officer has any clue what the rule? They don't have any idea.
Yeah. No.
They just go in, close your deal, and it's like, Mr. Buyer, Mr. Seller, on your own. We expect you to know everything, do it right, and not our problem.
Right.
And I see that so often here in Texas also. These title companies, they all say, oh, sure, we can do it. Of course, they want the business, and I understand everybody wants the business. But who's going to draft the documents right? Did anybody take a moment to see if there are good disclosures between the seller and buyer, due on sale, seller liability, things of this nature? Are you using a loan servicing company? Are you not doing that? Has anything else been done? Are things being done properly? Is there underlying lien disclosures and insurances? All these things that you need to be thinking about, right?
Right.
Title companies don't do it. No, I'm not going to use the name of this one title office. And of course, they hire some guy to do their doc drafting internally. They do this. And the docs are terrible. But this only deals with the sale. It has nothing to do with the contract, which is where 90% of this business falls.
Right.
So do you have a decent contract? Is it disclosed properly so you can close it? And I like to answer these questions. It's like, can you go to any title company? Sure. Who's going to draft the paperwork for a proper subject to? Do they know how to do it? Are you providing the seller back a deed of trust to protect the seller? which is one of the things you really want to do, right?
Yeah.
In Arizona, if you do a subto, you've got to incorporate a note with the transaction. Well, is that note recourse, non-recourse? Who's going to make the decision? An escrow officer? I don't think so. Do they even think about that? Don't know. Other states have similar rules and regulations, I'm sure, of some type. And I have just found, which has made, I guess, our law firm and our company, OFN National Escrow, so prolific in closings, is that these other companies, they don't get it.
Right.
No one is looking after the seller. No one's looking after the buyer. They just want to make money in the middle, move on, which we all understand. But if you are really a player in this game, we want it to last. We don't want people to mess it up where a seller gets taken advantage of or a buyer does or whatever it might be along the way. And you want to make sure our investors do it the right way. So you want to have them reach out to knowledgeable real estate attorneys, because a title company doesn't necessarily have a real estate attorney in-house. I would say that more than half are not fee offices with attorneys, but they have just an escrow officer. They're a corporate office of some type. And these poor gals who are the escrow officers, they have no clue what the rules or regulations are or anything else that's needed. And who's going to draw up the paperwork for them? Some third-party law firm that the investor buyer has no clue what it is? And does that investor buyer even know what to look for in the paperwork? So I see so many instances where the transaction is simply not drafted right.
Right.
I did one just recently where a group here in Dallas closed it, and they put a due on sale clause in the investor transaction that was specifically requested not to be in there. And then they kept trying to make all these excuses for redrafting paperwork and documents, and finally it's like, all you got to do, guys, is a correction affidavit and take care of it. Finally, we got it done. But it took 3 or 4 weeks just to get that simple thing done. And it's just that pushback. And you always want people to try to do it right the first time. And I don't care how good you are in the real estate business, Andy, and you know this.
Yeah.
Mistakes are made here and there along the way.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody moves too fast. You can always go back and fix them and take care of the issues almost always. Yeah, it's just having a reasonable understanding of that.
Well, to what you said, it's so important if you want to get in this game to not only learn the process, you need to put in the work, learn how to do it correctly on your own behalf, but spend some time finding the third parties you're going to work with that actually know what they're going to do. And unfortunately, when you're talking about the creative finance space, you can't just open up a phone book and blindly put your finger down and find, whatever title company and expect that they're going to know what to do any more than you can just pick up the phone and find a real estate lawyer and be like, oh, well, they're going to know all about subto, wrap, all that. They don't. A small segment of the group of lawyers in the space even barely know what it is.
No, they do. And, it is such of an a-traditional transaction so often. They just don't do it. And because they don't do it, they just shy away from it completely. They don't understand all the internal workings. They don't understand the rules and regulations. And because of that, they'd rather not do the deal. But then there are those that go, wow, we can do this. And then you always ask that question, what are you really doing? And what I want to point out to our investor community is that not only do you need to know the process, procedures, rules, and regulations, compliance, and things of that nature that are out there, but it is understand what it is you should be executing at closing, so that when you are executing that paperwork, you can actually, go through the paperwork and ensure that the right documents are in there. They just think that because they go to a title company, it's all done great, not a problem at all. These guys don't represent them as a counsel or as an attorney. And unfortunately, Andy, we investors, and this is me included, we're cheap. And if my business partner is listening, she's going to go, amen, which is what she always says about me. But no one ever wants to pay money to hire Andy or Sean or Scott to represent them in the deal. And I get that. But if you don't know what you're doing, you got to gain that information somewhere, somehow.
All right. Good stuff.
So,
yeah,
it's just an issue that's out there.
Sure.
I got a question here. We always see our friends down in Florida, who I believe this is. Um, I'm waiting for those cohibas to
Yeah, I
show up
know.
to
When
our
are we gonna get
offices,
some
Andy.
cigars? You big cigar
Golly.
smoker?
You know, um, two,
Yeah.
3, 4 a year maybe, and you puff on them. That's about it. Then you ask yourself the next morning, what
Was
in
I
the world was
thinking?
I
Yeah,
thinking?
exactly. Yeah, I was, in my law school days, I enjoyed um cigars. I went to law school in Virginia, so I moved from Arizona to Virginia, and everything was way more formal on the East Coast. So they enjoyed things like pipes. So I kind of enjoyed a pipe on occasion, the old school kind of tobacco pipe. Wasn't ever a cigarette smoker, but enjoyed cigars. And just a little after law school, I did it for a little bit longer, but then just stopped it because I had a lot of those, like you said, like the next morning, like, what was I doing? I felt terrible. So I can't even remember the last time I had a cigar, but I used to enjoy them a lot.
Well, every once in a while, if you have a decent little cigar, either with a little bit of a decent wine or maybe a little scotch or bourbon, it kind of adds to the flavor and the aroma and the
Yeah.
taste. Okay, I get that. Nothing
Yeah.
excessively, but yeah, a little
Oh,
bit
yeah.
goes a
Sure
long way,
does.
my friend.
All right, we got another question. If you're just not joining us, this is the Creative Finance Collective. We're taking live questions about creative finance. So if you have them, give them to us. We'd love to have them. Another a simple one, but we don't really talk about creative finance in this context, but it's about real estate agents. Can a real estate agent list a sub-2 opportunity, I guess a sub-2 deal on the MLS? I don't know. I don't know why they can't. I don't think they do very often. What do you think?
I don't- I think it goes back
Yeah.
to who their broker is and what their broker wants to do. And usually a broker says things like, if you're going to do this, you have to make sure you have the appropriate people to employ in the transaction, knowledgeable real estate attorney, these kind of things. Years ago, Andy, we came up with this thing called the 4x4 rule for the creative finance world, and it was to help realtors get over the hump of going, oh my gosh, you can't do this. It's illegal. It's this, it's that. The world's
Right.
going to come to an end if you do it. And it was, what are the 4 people to incorporate into every, creative finance deal? And that is the knowledgeable real estate attorney, a note pro if needed to help structure the deal properly for them, a RMLO, the loan processor if and when needed, and the loan servicer. And when you incorporate those 4 deals into every transaction, you can eliminate most of the issues that arise. Then the other 4 were compliance with the property code, Dodd-Frank, SAFE Act, and RESPA. And sometimes those apply, sometimes they don't apply. And Dodd-Frank, RESPA, and the SAFE Act are federal, so they're going to apply on every deal you do. The question is there an exemption or not? But if you do that, then that helps help the realtors get past that burden. But their brokers are looking to ensure that they know where to turn, because what they want to do, they want the realtors to market the properties. That's their job, is to market. It is not to take over your role or my role as an attorney or somebody of that nature for the closing process. And sometimes realtors who are pretty smart and good, they want to go a little bit too far, and their brokers want them to pull back to be able to hand it off to a proper entity for closing purposes. So I think if you've got a good broker in that regard, there's not going to be an objection to that. But it's going to be a broker by broker specific. There's a guy down here in Austin, Texas, who's trying to go out and train realtors nationally on how to do the business, whether it's buying it, selling it subject to, or even with a wraparound mortgage in some format, and providing training and the resources out there to help them, when the situation arises. I don't know how well that's going just yet. We keep hoping that that's going to flourish in regard. Here in Texas, we try to market to realtors all the time and just let them know that this is a viable solution when the situation arises. But again, I think it falls back on who the broker is and what they can or can't do.
I think that's right. It'd be nice if that was a place that you could readily find sub-2 deals. But it's but yeah.
But we have I can't share too much of this with y'all, but we're working with a national company I say we, I'm kind of the consultant for the guy putting this together, to be a national hub type scenario for marketing, properties subject to the existing debt, where realtors or investors can use it as a listing platform, and buyers can get um, brought to the equation, whether they're investors looking at buying
That'd
it
be
or
nice.
individuals, one or the other. So similar to MLS,
Yeah,
but different
good
in that
idea.
regard.
All right, if you're just now joining us, we are taking creative finance questions, or if you got real estate questions, we can take those as well. That's kind of our next question, Scott. This one is less creative finance focused, more real estate focused. From a YouTube listener, if my siblings and I inherit property from my parents, and I'm the only one that wants to sell, can I sell a partial interest in the property? I think my answer to just like the last one is sure. That I don't know why that can't be done. It could definitely be done. The question I think is who's going to buy that. I think there might be other than maybe an investor, right? I mean, I think there's definitely investors out there that would take them up on that. And we can explain why. What do you think?
We like, I like the partial interest acquisitions.
Yeah.
We've been doing that for years. It seems to have caught on a little bit out there now. Everybody takes the idea and run with it, which I get. But you got to know how to handle that stuff appropriately. Here in Texas, just as an aside, there is a bill right now in the House where they're trying to say that if an investor buys a partial
Hmm.
interest from an heir, you cannot do a partition suit
Ooh.
for 10 years. And I look at that and go, who in their right
Yeah.
mind ever came up with that? And it was just one situation, one scenario where somebody got taken advantage of something, and they raised Cain someplace. What they don't understand is we have a situation of brother and sister, and one wants to sell, one doesn't. One sibling can
Yeah.
buy the other one
Sure.
out, right? Pretty easy.
No.
But does that happen? No. They sit there, and usually the one that doesn't want to sell is the one that's
Mhm.
living in the house for free, not paying the bills, not paying the mortgage, not paying the taxes, whatever. And they wind up holding their other heir or heirs hostage, right? And that is typically the case that we see out there, where it might be you've got 5, 6, 8, 10 heirs, and maybe you control 90% of the property in some format, but that one heir, I don't want
Mhm.
to move out, I don't want to sell. You can't make me sell. And it becomes a talent in how you get them out. One of the things I find interesting is you can go through a standard partition scenario, but what we see legally so much is a situation where the property is behind in mortgage payments or property taxes quite a
Yeah.
bit, and now it's up for foreclosure. And so an heir or heirs are trying to sell off their interest or do something in some format before they get wiped out completely because of that one particular heir that simply will not cooperate. So what we've kind of devised and it is out there, I know, is you go in and you buy the partial interest, whatever that percent is, 50%, 80%, some number, and you pay those taxes, you pay those mortgage arrears, and you go back and you make demand on the heir who's the bad actor living for free. Now they're not going to come up and pay 20 grand in taxes or 10 grand in taxes. That's why they're living for free
Right.
probably. And you simply file suit for those damages, and you get a judgment against them, and you go execute on that judgment, and then you foreclose on their interest, and hopefully you'd be the buyer at the auction, because I don't see many people going to the tax or the
Mm.
judgment lien auction wanting to buy a 5 or 10 or 15%
Yeah.
partial interest in
Yeah.
the property. So you're going to wind up being the successful bidder in most cases in those situations. And then you get control of the house completely, and you go through your eviction
Yeah.
process.
Arizona recently, we've talked a little bit about this, overhauled their partition laws. What do you think? what do you think the likelihood is of that Texas law passing? 10 years would be, that'd be a significant change.
Yeah, there's oh, what am I talking? What am I trying to say? What's the word?
Petition.
Signatures. Petition. Thank you. Go poof, old timers. Going around, everybody signing to get in there to present to them because it is not a good thing. And just because one person had a bad issue, it's getting them to realize that there's a great need for that out there for these situations typically. So we're hoping it just goes poof and goes away. But we'll see how that fetters out. And that's only for heirs. It doesn't mean that if you have husband and wife, you have a divorce, you have this or that going on, and you're in the same situation there too. They just don't care. Well, I'm gonna let you get foreclosed on, honey. I don't care. I'm gonna screw up your credit so bad. I mean, you hear it all. I hear it all. These kind of
if you're just now joining us, we're talking about real estate and creative finance. If you have a question, make sure to post it. We'll be on as long as we're getting questions. Have another one. Haven't had this question before. They're thinking through the transaction, though, I think. Says, should the seller in a subto on a subto sale do a credit check on the buyer? So, somebody on the seller side thinking about this, the buyer buying at subto is obviously going to be taking over the payments. Seems like a pretty good idea.
Well, it's absolutely amazing. I've closed, as you know, thousands and thousands of deals like this. You never see an application, anything between the seller and the buyer, whoever the buyer is. And if it's me, I'm just a closing agent. I really can't tell either party what to do. It's not my place. And since I'm not one of the other's attorneys, we can't jump in and make suggestions. For me personally, if I'm the seller, dude, I'm getting my application, I'm getting tax returns, I'm getting whatever it is I need to know who my borrower is out there. Do they have the ability to make the payments? Don't tell me you're just a corporation and those kind of items. Who's behind the company? I want their application. I want their items as well. And if you want to buy the property, you're going to give me all this stuff.
It doesn't sound like you ever see that. I mean, why do you think do you think it's because most sellers are just oftentimes they've been distressed sellers and they're just happy to find somebody that's going to take the property?
I think that's probably 98% of it. I take it back. I think that's probably 50% of it, and the other 50% is just sheer ignorance. Just knowledge, lack of knowledge, lackadaisical, all the way through. And they probably are just looking for a solution. They want to wash their hands. They want to walk away, and they don't care anymore. That most of the time they're already facing foreclosure. So whether it forecloses tomorrow or next year or 5 years, from their perspective, it's no difference. Either that or they're getting sold a really good bill of goods from somebody who can talk the game well. Most of the time, I will tell you, 1 out of 500, maybe.
Wow.
Even bring the question up.
That's the other thing. I wonder how many sellers even think it's an option, right? I think a lot of times they associate credit checks with something that only big companies do, or banks, or these kind of things, and they forget that in this transaction they are the bank in some respect, right?
No, they are, but and I want to jump out of my skin and make suggestions in these deals along the way. But the problem is, again, if I'm just a closed agent or a title company, I can't really intervene per se and tell people.
And the other thing, it's not like it's expensive to go run a credit check. You get that application.
I don't really care about credit. And in the creative finance world, Andy, when I'm selling a home to a home buyer, for instance, I've got to process the buyer under the SAFE Act and whatnot, and go through and do all that. but their credit doesn't do a
Okay.
thing for me. I don't care. In fact, I'll tell you that 90% of our buyers
Okay.
have zero credit, which I love. I think that's A
Sure.
plus
I've
because they pay all their
never cared
bills.
to use it.
You look at the average. Look at the average Anglo out in the marketplace. No, negative, 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 negative. All these issues out there, and
Yeah.
we see nothing. What's so sad is the credit world treats that
Yeah.
as C credit.
Sure.
They look at it as A credit. What I look for is A, do you have the ability to make whatever the requested down payment is, or how can you
Right.
make it over what time frame? Number two is and probably the most important is, do you have the ability to
Right.
make, yeah, I look at things like where do you live now and how long you've been there. And if you're paying $1,000 in rent and you're moving up to pay $4,000 for a mortgage, okay, dude, what changed? That gave you that ability to jump up that much. Um, and you look at the common sense things that you need to look at. Do you have a job? How long you been on the job? Or are you jumping around, everywhere? Things of that nature. Um, and so credit really is only good for the traditional A plus mortgage world.
Right.
And in the creative finance world, whether you're a seller selling subto or maybe an investor doing a back end wrap loan, to me, it's all about the ability to repay, the ATR rule that we talk about that's under Dodd-Frank, you've got to follow out there. And who is the buyer?
Right.
All credit tells me is the ability for somebody to refinance the house downstream. And if that's not one of my primary goals, I don't care about it.
Sure.
And even if you sell mortgages professionally, which is one of the things that we do as well, credit, it doesn't even come into play. They care more about pay history and things of that nature, not what their credit looks like.
Right.
It's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
And you really want the investor community to kind of grasp that and understand it.
Yeah. The difference, I think, what you're getting at, the difference between a credit report with a score and doing due diligence on the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
Doing financial due diligence to assess their ability to repay and perform on their obligations.
Yep. And that's what you look for. And that's what you want people to learn to do out there. And I wish that in the sub-2 world, that investors would volunteer to give their sellers this information.
Sure.
The great odds are they're going to lose it somewhere along the way. Anyway, They don't care. They walk away from these deals. But to me, I think that actually helps to precipitate the ability to close the deal.
Sure.
And to entice that seller to work with you a little bit.
Right.
And get it going. But they don't. Not at all.
Yeah. That's just wild to think about. So as an answer to the question, yes, you should do it. And you can do it.
Yeah, they should do it. But again, I wouldn't say the credit check. It's, I want my seller to know who I am. If there's an issue or a problem, how to get a hold of me, how to help solve the problem, and not run from it. Now, there are those investors who really, they want to run from things. They do want to hide things. And there are those bad actors in the marketplace, unfortunately. But, I suggest doing that whenever possible.
Yeah, well, it's amazing when you think about, you can't buy a car anymore without somebody providing a Carfax, a history of the car. It's just almost complimentary at this point. But to think that somebody would sell a real estate under a, subto or wrap or whatever else and not require the buyer or even ask for it's kind of mind-blowing.
They don't do that. So I'm sitting here reading an email, Andy. Has nothing to do with this at all.
Okay.
But I was talking to one of our private lenders earlier. It happens to be my partner Susan's brother. And of course, I razz her all the time, going, "Hey, he told me all the the various issues you did as a kid growing up and all the antics, etc. And she's just going, "Oh no, 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 no! I was a perfect child." And you know Susan as well as I do, and there ain't no
Yeah.
way she was a perfect child.
Not a chance.
No, not a chance. But anyway,
Well,
so
Scott, go ahead.
no, so no Sean. He's out. Is he going to cook fish for us tonight again?
Yeah, I hope so. I don't know. He's got some speaking engagement he's doing.
Did
So
you go to the Waste Management Phoenix Open at all, or stay the heck away?
I stayed away. I
Good
stayed
Lord.
away. I haven't been in a couple of years. I it used to be a yearly pilgrimage for me. I never missed it. But boy, last year they had all these problems with the rain. This year, no rain. The weather was beautiful. You couldn't have asked for better weather. But holy cow, the man, you wanna see crowds. You go to the Phoenix Open on a Saturday when they've got 250,000 plus people there. It's
Oh my gosh.
it's crazy.
No.
Yeah.
I learned, excuse me, a long time ago that, going to and I'll say here in Dallas, growing up, I say growing up, from your early 20s through your 30s, we would go to the Byron Nelson.
Oh yeah.
And if you wanted a date, that is where you went. Let me tell you what, it was awesome back in the day. But you didn't go to watch golf because you really couldn't watch golf. And if you're a golf fan, and I love golf, and I like watching golf actually.
Yeah.
And if you're at a golf tournament, you don't get a chance to see too much.
No.
No, you see a swing here or there, and I go yeehaw. And to me, it's a whole lot more fun to watch, on a just on TV in so many different factors than it is to actually be there. And I get there's a time and place in being in the whatever they call that, the stadium and those kind of things,
Yeah.
which looks way out of my league nowadays. 35 years ago, maybe. Today, not so much. It looks just wild and crazy.
Yeah.
It'd be like going out to Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas to the adults only pool. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Certain places you just need not to go and stay away from and move on.
Yeah. No, it's a fun experience to see at different times. Different days, if you don't want the crowds, are better than others. The Pro-Am day, which is the Wednesday before the tournament starts, that's actually kind of a fun day because fewer people and you get to see celebrities play golf, and I enjoy that.
That's just like going to, if you get a chance to go to the Masters, which I've only been there once for the practice rounds. I've never been invited to go to the main tournament, and probably never will. But being able to go out there on the practice round days where you can walk, the players are leisurely, the players are talking to the fans, everybody else out there, and
Right.
that's fun.
Yeah.
But I would almost again, if I had the chance to go, would I go? Absolutely. But am I going to drop 10 grand on a ticket to go or something like that? Yeah, no, not at all.
Yeah. Heck no.
Let's go buy the 85-inch TV or something like that, and I'll have a lot more fun doing that than walking out there.
Yeah, usually when if you network enough with the Phoenix Open, you'll get kicked down, some good seats at some box or whatever on the 16 or 17. And that's usually what we kind of wait for, see if we get any. And I haven't gotten any in the last couple of years, but maybe I'm not networking.
What happened to that? Pre 2009, Andy?
Yeah.
We were wined and dined to the nth degree.
Yeah.
After 09, zip.
Done.
Interesting how that goes, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Well, Scott, that's all our questions today. Appreciate you taking the time to be with us to go through some of that, and hopefully we get the rest of the gang back here soon.
Well, I think we gave them a lot more info than they really wanted to know, but
Probably, but
take it for what it is, right?
yeah, that's how
And-
it goes.
I'm going to need to talk to you while I got you on air for a minute about Arizona. I think I know what your foreclosure laws are. I want to get that in my head. And about liens out there again. And I'm learning this from you and Sean and from our title offices there, but I'm going to have to pick your brain one day with your permission.
Yeah, no sweat. Let's do it.
Nothing too much, in depth, but I know that things are a little bit different out there, like with homestead rules and regulations. Up to a certain dollar amount is exempted, and over is not exempted, and the little nuances that come into play.
Sure. We'll go through it.
I'll look forward to it, Andy.
All right. Thanks, Scott.
See you guys soon.
See ya.